Hello, everybody. Good morning,
Hello.
Nate.
Good morning. Address the elephant in the room.
Yes, that is an elephant. There it is. I see it.
Okay, I know people, please do not think that I do not appreciate Thanksgiving, that I am somehow usurping and ignoring that fabulous holiday, which I so appreciate. But just like I teach you how to build a business on systems, my whole life is systemized. No joke. Ask anyone in my very small circle of the most intimate near me. Everything has a system. Every closet, everything has a system. But 2020 has been incredibly rewarding on the lesson side. I mean, it has been a year of great confirmation with a lot of things, specifically systemizing a business and following metrics. We have seen great reward from doing that. And it's also been, for me personally, it's just been really rich on, okay, Amy, it's a new era, and it's a new time for you to focus down and to take your eyes off of even things externally. It's time to go deeper into the needs of the clients and into the value that I give and that you and I give together, and really, really just taking the skill of focus and concentration to a new level.
Yeah. And I think you set the stage for this in the beginning of January when you shared with me. You said there is one word that I'm focused on this year: better. Just one word that set in motion, all the opportunities for these lessons just by narrowing it. I'm focusing on better. That's it. Just better,
Yes.
In every area.
Every area. And it really, you reminding me of that just gave me the chills. I have that written down, but I haven't visited it in a while because I've just been focused on doing it, And one thing that is really emerging and has from day one, I mean, if I go all the way back to, let's see, you and I were together with our families. Was it August of 2019? Yes. Yeah, August of 2019. We saw a very clear pattern emerging amongst the people we were talking to, both clients and prospects, of this need to focus, right? There was a real concern that people, of their own concern of, I have got to escape this. People were calling it shiny object syndrome. Some of them were saying, I've tried all this stuff and I can't seem to get the results that I want. Some were saying, I've talked to dozens of people like you, observing behaviors online. There'd be on again, off again strategies being used. So there was a lot of just really random acts that, not bad activity. Look, I think some of the temptation is that all activity, when you are trying to deliver value, is good. So if you're going on Facebook Live and you're sharing value, it's good. That's a good activity. If you're going on somebody's podcast or you're developing your own podcast, it's good. That's a good activity. But if you want to scale impact, if you want to leave a legacy, if you want your business to still be here and paying you and impacting lives in 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years, those are not the best activities unless you have literally an audience, whether it's in a pixel or it's physically online, a following of 1 million people. Because you think about it, only 1 to 5%, at the very, very best of the best, only 1 to 5% of the people that are following you will actually see your stuff, and only 1 to 5% of those people will respond. That is
I should stop right there just for a second, because this was staggering to me when you shared it the first time, because I was someone who really enjoyed doing a Facebook Live. I thought it was a way that was adding value, and it was adding value to the 1% of the 1%. it was shocking to me when I heard that I needed to have a following of 1 million people if it was going to actually help me drive sustainability in the business. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. And that kind of goes into this idea that we talk about a lot. What is your highest value, right? So it's interesting, I just didn't want to rush past that, because I don't think many people understand 1 million people. You have to be in front of 1 million. That's a big number. Nobody else is telling people that, right? They're selling an idea that has no basis factually to support their goals. And I just wanted to make sure, we took a minute to say, hey, just listen, this is a big piece of info here to help you just think through maybe, what could be your best focus.
Yeah. I think I appreciate you really pushing that point home, because here is the and you can ask anybody. I mean, you pick up the phone and you get Frank Kern on the line, one of the top digital marketers in the world. He's going to tell you the same thing, 1 to 5%. This is not like Amy's, feeling. This is the fact, Jack. Okay, this is not what I'm thinking. This is not what I'm feeling. This is the truth. This is the reason why you see Chick-fil-A billboards on the most populated highways, because scale requires a lot of attention. It requires a lot of attention. And so you need a lot of eyes seeing it. And the rule of 7 to 20 touches before people really take action has not changed. That's not going anywhere. That is how we are trained. That is how trust is built. Is we got to show up a few times. We got to be consistent with the same language in the same manner, or people flee, they freak out. And so it really is a interesting process when we start talking about scaling impact. And I think some of the deception comes in when we get 1 or 2 people from those ways.
Yes.
So then we think, oh, well, I got that, I can get it again. But it's consistency wins. That is the deal here, is consistency. So if we're going to invest time, our highest value, marketing and selling, let's do it in an arena that is proven, that we know that we are always going to convert 3% of everyone that first sees anything that we do. 3% of people everywhere are waiting to buy your service. Just remember that number. It's not going away. We have lived it. We have seen it. Now, within that 3%, we're looking for certain conversions of 20%. I'm not going to get into all of these numbers today. You can visit that in the portal. The point here is focus. And that's what I want to talk to you about, because it is a skill, and it is not a skill. Focus and concentration are not skills that we are taught. We're not taught those. As a matter of fact, as our society has evolved and become more digital, we move farther and farther from the skill set of focus and concentration. And I just think it's so interesting, Shane, that the Small Business Association has actually moved the margin from 20% of businesses gone in the first year to 30%. And literally, it's jumped by 10% in less than 10 years. And the number one reason is still cash flow. Now, cash flow, managing money and keeping a budget, just think about your own family budget. That requires discipline and focus. And so when we start to move away from the activity of managing cash flow, something has distracted us. And once we are distracted, fear, it is a breeding ground for fear. We start to panic. I don't know where this client came from. I don't know if it was the podcast, or if it was the email, or if it was the post with the call to action every single day. I don't know where they're coming from, so I don't know how to duplicate it. So I'm just going to do everything again this month. Oh, this month passes, I got nobody. Yeah. And it just creates this roller coaster of just sheer panic. I mean, I've lived it and you've lived it. It is horrible.
It is horrible. It is horrible. Kyle was talking with someone yesterday, a coaching client, and he was saying how he was lacking confidence, right? And the reason he had no confidence was because he had no method that he could trust to be able to produce a result. Now, we weren't talking about marketing and sales. We were talking about his interaction with his team, but the principle still applies.
Yeah.
If you have no defined, consistent methodology, of course you won't have confidence, because everything is guesswork. You're grabbing and hoping, right? And there is not enough consistency in grabbing and hoping for you to have solid ground, which is where the confidence comes from. So yeah, it of course it induces panic, right? Like, what else would it be bringing?
Exactly.
It principally can't produce anything else.
Exactly. And you and I, has it been a year or over a year, have been going?
It's been a little bit over a year now. That's so
yeah.
long.
Yeah.
Time flies. Oh.
And we'll be living on this book for a long. I'm a big believer in let's stay in it until we apply it, right?
Yes.
But in this book that you and I have been really studying, trying to become students of the law of success, and one of the chapters is all on concentration. So I want to contextualize, is that the word, what we are talking about here. So I like Napoleon Hill says it best here. He says concentration is the act of focusing the mind upon a given desire until ways and means for its realization have been worked out and successfully put into operation. Now, he talks about two important laws that enter into the act of developing the skill of concentration, but we're only going to talk about one today, which is the habit that grows out of environment. So the law of habit that grows out of environment. So I know when an owner is struggling and probably is teetering on a tipping point of they might not make it, when I hear things like, I just keep putting things off, like the things that I want to do, I'm not doing. And, like I'll get messages frequently about, well, I'm going to start over on the content, or I'm going to, I've just been so distracted, things like every time the phone buzzes, it takes you away from the activity, or the calendar chimes. How many Zoom calls have you been on where somebody's calendar is chiming through the whole thing?
Yes. Or they have you've heard of Slack?
Yes.
Kind of like an internal messenger companies use. Somebody will have their Slack feed up, and that thing is just pinging, and you can watch their eyes, right? Like
yes, exactly. Yes. And we don't realize that every time we do that, we break concentration.
Every time, yeah.
So we actually don't learn to concentrate, and we as owners, we are the most susceptible to really the disease of distraction. Right. So, and where this comes from is our own disorganized environment. So sometimes environments look like this. We're investing in flashy studio equipment, right? We have multiple screens. So we might have our screen for one business up while we're running a screen for another business, while the phone is ringing, right? Or we're trying to master as fast as possible the latest Facebook features like live video, and so that we can somehow get the message to more people, but you don't realize only 1% to 5% of the people that are already following you are actually seeing it. And the reality is that every marketing gimmick that comes across our feed is luring us into their online training or download or, conference call or whatever it might be. And the problem here is that we as entrepreneurs, we just get bored with routine,
Sure do.
So, and yesterday, you and I, we have the real privilege of being a part of, we started it, but we are a part of something we call the Catapult Mastermind Group. So these are people amongst our community that have had just massive success in their businesses. And they are saying, hey, we know that there is more for us to learn. And so we have that same value. So we get together, and in that group yesterday, it's a year-long commitment. We show up twice a month. It is the most powerful 2 hours right? We meet total of 4 hours a month, and we literally go off the law of the mastermind as it was originally designed, which really this idea came from Andrew Carnegie. Yeah. And it is a true kind of think tank intensive sharing of values, just being in harmony. It's just so powerful. But this conversation came up, and one of the members said, well, how do you deal with boredom? How do you do? I mean, boredom really is an occupational hazard. And I find that it shows up when we have acquired the mastery in a certain area necessary to take the business to the next level. Right? Yeah.
I'm just writing that down. That's really good.
Yeah. Yes. And Ross, we're talking about The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill. It's a very large, it's really a course. It really is a college course. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're talking about. But so we talked about how do we tackle boredom, and ultimately, how do we not get stuck in the humdrum, boring routine of it all? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm just, what are some of the things that people do when they get bored? What do you see people doing when they get bored? What do they start doing?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I can share with you my experience. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If a video camera followed me around in the early years of my business, when I got bored with something, I would just leave it mid-activity and go on to the next thing, but I would not come back. You know what I mean?
Yes. So that one there, I think everyone who's watching this can relate to, because that's where it shows up for me, right? Mm-hmm. Like I know, like, okay, something is not, like if I start to exit out of something before I finish, like, okay, that's an indicator that I'm allowing some boredom to creep in and take over, right? Like that is a big one. I think the other thing that, and you've mentioned this, that I tend to do, and I think others do as well, is they begin to search, right? Searching could be as simple as you look out the window and you say, well, I should go cut the grass. The grass is a little bit tall. I should go clean the garage. Like you just begin to search for something that just feeds this need that you have created in your own mind for freshness.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like,
you're looking for that momentary,
just something, just a little.
I just need an endorphin rush. I'm bored. I don't feel productive, because we have trained ourselves to make these crucial decisions off of how I feel in the moment.
That's right. And we've been trained, if you don't feel good in the moment, go figure out how to fix that.
Yes. Go get that feeling back.
Yes.
Where's the adrenaline going to come from? I mean, it's even something as big as I'm going to go make myself a pot of coffee. Yes. Or, and then you get in there and you're standing at the counter and you pop open your phone and you find yourself scrolling for 30 minutes, or, you're suddenly hungry. So now you go to the refrigerator and you never come back to the activity you were in. Right. Yep. And this is really the perfect storm for great loss and endless chaos, because you end that day feeling like, something wasn't completed.
That's right. You feel behind.
And so then you wake up the next day thinking, okay, well, I've got a whole new day, but the behavior has not changed. So neither does the cycle of chaos.
It just compounds then. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Larry Burkett, which is a book you and I are also studying together, Business by the Book, he says that excellent entrepreneurs have learned that even though ideas start businesses, attention makes them successful. He also goes on to say they have also experienced that shooting from the hip decisions no longer suffice.
Boy. So true. So true. And that's where you get, I'll just use me, whenever I get into that cycle that you just described, where boredom, if I allow it, creep in and get carried off of task, this urgency to then try to get caught up forces shoot from the hip decision making, because you don't have the time. You cannot recoup the time you've already spent.
No.
So then now it's like, okay, well, I got to shoot from the hip to see if I can make it. And it, like you said, perfect storm, right? Perfect.
And for so many owners, the more time ticks down without income, the more panic and desperation and fear set in.
Yes.
Right. That fear, that is a breeding ground. This is the reason why I am, after a period of time, you have heard me counsel owners, go get a job. Just stop the panic, because that is not going to help you. That actually counter defeats the purpose of being present enough to help someone enough that they want to hire you. I mean, it's just a cycle of pure chaos.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And you and I have found this, because we practice this, that one's mental concentration and one's physical environment are as closely connected as twin sisters. You cannot have a chaotic environment and be able to concentrate.
Nope.
It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Yeah.
No. And I think that as we went deeper into this conversation with our group yesterday, they were saying things like, I am stopping stuff that is good, but it is not the highest value. So where do we find the highest value? We talk to current clients and ask them pretty frequently, and we're listening on those strategy sessions. And so the more value we see that the market is placing on something, we now have a responsibility to decide, am I going to flow with the value that the market wants for me, or am I going to keep trying to force people to buy something because I like it better?
Boy, I came face to face with this.
Same.
The third time that you helped me with my market message. I was so wanting to do my thing that I couldn't even see what the market was saying, right? Like that was how committed I was to, I'm going to make the market do what I want it to do, which never happens.
Exactly.
It never happens.
Because I like it better.
That's right. I want to do this because I like it better, and what I was trying to do was to convince them of what they needed, not actually start with what they wanted, and then eventually over time be able to get to what they needed. But I think the responsibility to decide, boy, that's big, because that was the moment, right? Like you had to show me, and then I had to make the decision. It's either, my granddad used to say, are you going to fish or are you going to cut bait? One is just sitting around doing nothing that is meaningful. And the other is actually the activity that's going to get me to where I want to go. So in that moment, even in that moment, there is this discipline of focus that's required in order to pick up that responsibility. If you can't see it, you can't take responsibility. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And
big difference between owning a business and having a hobby.
Oh yeah. Or being a startup, owning a business and always being in a startup phase. Yeah. If you cannot pay yourself, your business is a startup. It doesn't matter how long you have been in business. Yep. And yesterday, do you remember someone saying, so Amy, how do we feed the appetite of creativity?
Yeah.
And not get stuck in this humdrum, boring routine of the day. Yeah, do you remember that conversation?
Good conversation.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There was some really powerful points there, and you made some of them. So tell me a little bit about what that part of the conversation.
So the idea is, is the question really was, do I have to sacrifice everything that is meaningful and fun in order to stay in it when it gets boring? Right? Like, do I just have to drudge up, the willpower to just keep doing the stuff? Right. And so we talked about how in those moments, we tend to go to one or two extremes. In those moments where we start to experience boredom, we either just peg it out, on one side and say, I'm doing nothing fun. I'm just going to hunker down and I'm going to be so fun. We tend to go that way. Or we tend to go the opposite way and say, I have to get a release from this activity that's suffocating me. And we just abandon it all and we do all creativity and no discipline involved whatsoever. And what we talk through then, and you did a good job of bringing this to the table, there is integration of creativity in the midst of the discipline of focus, right? Like, so it's just like everything else that you teach within this system. This is all about integration. Where I tended to look at this early on was it was black and white, either or, and that's very linear thinking. I'm either focused or I'm not, right? Like, it just very concrete terms. And what I learned yesterday, just as you kept talking through it, was no, there's a way to begin to integrate these things. And a matter of fact, it's very important that you do for your own well-being, right? Yeah. So share a little bit more about what that looks like. How do we integrate the creativity into the midst of the work that is requiring focus?
Yeah. Well, I think that it is how I have done this. It's going to require a different environment. Your environment has to change. So the way you've managed time, the way you've managed resources, even the way you look at tools that are good and still leave them alone. Yes. Like, this requires a tremendous amount of change that doesn't just come when you get some clients, because guess what? The habits don't change. You now have more people you're responsible to, and your habits are still terrible, and you cannot serve them well. So now your credibility is in the tanker, and to restart is a nightmare. Yeah. Right. So the way integration works is there a new tool that you've had on the shelf, not something you have to go learn, not a new certification, but a tool you already possess and already have some proof of concept around that you can pull in and integrate into that model with current clients? So that stokes some creativity, right?
Yes. This is, I think, especially for our clients who are coaches or trainers or speakers, this is so good. Because old me, I would be pulling stuff just to keep from getting bored, fresh. I like it, right? Like, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. But what I found within working this model, as you just described it, is know that there's a time and a place, right? Right time and the right activity. And I now could see that, like, okay, so now I'm looking for where are these patterns emerging, that either the problem is changing or there's a new aspect of the problem that's coming through, either in the way in which client work is happening or conversations in a strategy session. And I know, I'm looking right over here, like, I got a whole library of activity over here that can help. But if there's not emerging need, it just stays on the shelf. It just stays on the shelf. But I shifted, and instead of thinking I had to drop it in order for creativity to happen, no, there's creativity in the midst of the searching, in the midst of the listening, in the midst of the watching, how people, like, there is creativity in that moment, as well as the moment when you drop in the new solution, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And it really, that integration makes the work more valuable to you and to the people that are receiving it, right? Yeah. So that is an integration. The other integration is on the marketing side, right? Because remember, the only two things that matter in your business is acquiring new clients and helping them get what they want. Not, being the most popular. It's not about being known and seen and lots of likes and comments and shares. That's not what this is about. It's about actually acquiring new clients and helping them get what they want. And that's our responsibility. And so the integration on the marketing side gives us the opportunity to look and say, okay, is there a new angle to the content, right, that I'm putting out there? Is there a new issue that is emerging? And I can tell you that, my target market has 4. Mm-hmm. And so far, for many, many years, that hasn't changed. Mm-hmm. It's still the same 4 problems that they keep coming up against. Mm-hmm. And those are the 4 things that this system is completely built around. The indirect result is acquisition of clients, sustainable income, cash flow at the highest level. It is the ability, the freedom, the luxury of choice is an indirect result of me solving these 4 things. If I get out of the realm of solving those 4 things, which I have done and you have seen that, you have seen me take on a project that could I do it? Absolutely. Was it the highest value? No. And I had to write big checks back and say, I'm not the person. I'm not going to, here's everything I've done on the project and your money back. And here's the person that can actually do this for you and enjoys it. Right. Here you go. Here's all of your money back. But the reality is that it is because I now understand the benefit of focus and concentration. You have shared countless times, especially on the beginning of the Q&A calls, about how you have harnessed, and well, really not even harnessed, how you have been developing the skill of focus and concentration. And what are some of those, day-to-day activities you have found really helpful just to your own activity?
So for me, the catalyst for beginning this journey of going deeper in focus for me was the use of a timer. So the activity is very simple. It is very simple. The activity that your system is built around, it's not hard.
No.
What's hard is becoming the person that system demands I become in order for it to work consistently.
Yes.
So for me, I battled the distraction, right? So a timer was very helpful. I said, you know what? I'm going to spend this much time where I'm going and trying to make new connections with people who are in the market, right? Mm-hmm. And I would do that for a certain amount of time, and the timer would go off, and I'd get up and I'd spend 15 minutes doing something else, right? Yeah. That was a moment of creativity. I would go take a walk and listen to a devotional. For me as a person of faith, that was creativity emerged in that moment. I would sometimes go and I'd throw the ball to the dog, but just something that would then, just give me that renewal. And I'd come back in and I'd set the timer and I'd move to the next activity.
Yes.
And the reward that I found at the end of the day was this level of freedom of choice that you talked about. Because I would get to the end of the day 2 hours sooner when I used the timer. You talk about some wasted time. Oh my gosh. What would you do with an extra 2 hours a day? You would find things that were meaningful to go and invest yourself in, your family, hobbies, whatever it is, right? So I recaptured tons of time by doing that, but I also began habitually using that timer over and over again, right? So that was the first thing, setting the timer, but then taking the breaks in between the activities. And then as I got disciplined on that rhythm, now I could begin to integrate other things into my day. See, I tried to integrate things into my day without having the discipline of managing my time, and that doesn't work. You have to figure out this discipline of being consistent in these activities before you can start integrating other things into it, or it doesn't work, right? So that was huge. I think the other thing that is a piece of this focus is me having made a commitment that I am going to get better at this. I just decided I'm going to get better at managing my time. If you don't want to do this, you're not going to stick with it long enough for the habit to be developed, right? I had to determine I'm going to get better at this skill. And then I had to have people like you, Amy, who would help me be accountable to actually doing those things every day. And it's in a different notebook. Every day I'm writing out my activity. If I feel like that my focus is starting to drift, I go back to writing out my activity. Minute by minute, 8 o'clock to here, this is what I did, just to remind myself the value of this focus, which only comes on the back end with the reward, the additional time, and the impact that it has for those 2 most important things, getting new clients and getting clients what they want. Does that make sense?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I think about some of the most successful, you're talking about athletes, scientists, great minds of our entire time. You think about all of history, if you go and study these successful people, the one thing you're going to find is their ability to focus for long periods of time on one task, not multitasking, on one task. And it is a tremendous, this is why very few people are able to do it, because the discipline that it takes in life, and I'm telling you, it is the truth, that focus and concentration literally has the power to change your entire life. That is how our natural design is to focus the brain on something for a long period of time. You want to talk about the magic pill. That's what it is focus and concentration.
Right.
You can search it all the way back to the invention of the light bulb, or to people that have even been able to change their physical bodies, or those that have been able to take an idea like this guy that has that My Pillow. I mean, he's a gazillionaire. And he created a pillow, people. I mean, how does that happen? Or fried chicken with Chick-fil-A. It's not because they received some kind of favorable moment that the rest of us aren't ever going to get. It's just not it is their ability to be able to focus on this one thing forever.
And it takes, though, some time to get to the place where you can hone in and focus, right? Early in this process, there's a lot of discovery. What is the problem that the market has? And then we prioritize those problems. And then we look and say, what really makes my heart sing as I look at those problems? Which one really makes my heart sing that allows me to be able to come in, that I really want? And then now we narrow down and we start to get really intentional and focused on that. The temptation is, though, to bail out, right? This goes back to, the boredom. But there is a depth that comes with this principle that we're talking about that is inexhaustible. You never get to the end and say, okay, I've mastered this. And for me, that's another thing that adds to the creativity, that it eliminates the boredom. It's this discovery of how can I continue to go deeper and deeper and deeper. When I first started my business, I thought the name of the game was wider, 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 wider. Right? Like the wider you go, the more impact that you make. The wider you go, the more money you make. The wider you go. The key is the depth. The depth is endless if you stay in it, right? That's the key.
Yeah.
Stay in it.
And what I'm telling you is if you will stay in it, and I'm talking about fast, it will be a fast result. This is, and here is the thing, and I'm going to leave you with this. If you are in a model where you've got multiple offers and you have less than 300 people that are your client, you, my friend, are not a focused individual. And I'm even going to go so far as to say, if you've got multiple brands and offers and you are struggling with time or cash flow, you lack focus and concentration, and you are literally wrapped in the disease of distraction. I'm telling you, these are the outward indicators of massive issues, and they're going to sink your ship. It might not be today. Might not be next year, but within 5 years, you will be working for someone else. Wow. And I'm telling you that from personal experience. You will be working for someone else. If you came into this thinking that somebody was going to do this for you, and when I say this, I don't mean marketing and sales. I mean defining and owning your success, because that's what drives marketing and sales, is when the owner knows where their success is coming from, why it's coming, and why people are paying them. If you don't know that, you are not a focused individual, and you are on the verge of losing it all. And that is not my feeling. That is the truth. And so I'm telling you that with a lot of love and care, because I'm just not going to sugarcoat the truth for you.
So good. Well said.
All right. We'll leave it there.
Awesome.
All right.
See you, everybody.
Okay. Bye, everyone.